Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll get started now. My name is Alyssa Kelly. I'm the Research and Challenge Manager at Foresight Canada. I'm joined by quite a few colleagues here who will get the opportunity to introduce themselves shortly. But today we're excited to talk about one of our newest SDG Connect challenges run in partnership with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service Office in South Africa and Exxaro Resources. Exxaro is one of the top 5 coal producers in South Africa and is the largest Black-empowered diversified mining company. They're looking for innovative Canadian carbon tracking and tracing solutions to understand the sources of emissions in their operations. And we'll talk about this in detail shortly, but first I'll give a brief introduction to Foresight Canada and the SDG Connect Challenge Service. I'll then hand it over to our partner organization, the Trade Commissioner Service, to introduce themselves. And then we'll hear from Exxaro to tell us more about their company and introduce the challenge. And finally, afterwards, we'll open it up to the audience for some questions. For those of us who are joining us, you can type any questions you have in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or raise your hand during the Q&A period to ask your question in person using the raise hand function under reactions. And this webinar will also be recorded and shared online. So let's get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Foresight is Canada's clean tech ecosystem accelerator. We bring partners together to identify, commercialize, and adopt clean technologies. And Foresight's programs and services focus on 5 areas of opportunity. So we run accelerator programs helping innovators and ventures grow. We host innovation challenges such as this one to match industry with clean tech solutions. We conduct research to build knowledge with market intelligence, industry roadmaps, and data. We build strategic partnerships to build innovation capacity, and we also build clusters to bring together ecosystems for collaboration. And here are a few of our metrics. We've supported over 700 SMEs since 2015. We've supported 6,400 green jobs plus and run 30 open challenges and counting. And we are very pleased to offer the SDG Connect Challenge service. Through the service, we connect international businesses who are looking to reach their sustainable development goals to Canadian companies with clean tech solutions through open innovation challenges. And these are all done in an efficient, affordable, and low carbon way because it's all virtual. So with that being said, I will now hand it over to our colleagues at the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service in South Africa to introduce themselves.
Hi, thank you very much, Alyssa, and to everybody at Foresight for creating this fantastic challenge, this whole platform. It's something that I hadn't heard about until I got to South Africa 2 months ago, and I'm just pleased as punch that South Africa was able to engage with you to move this project forward in South Africa. I'd also like to thank all of the people at Exxaro because, of course, they spent their time and effort to create this challenge. As we all know, necessity is the mother of invention, and so very much appreciate them being able to lay the challenge. And another special thanks to all of the Canadian SMEs who have actually taken up the challenge. I certainly think that in the area of clean tech, as in almost all areas of business, nobody knows everything, and getting together to try to put together solutions that incorporate expertise from different and disparate sources is always a great solution. So I really look forward to this. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit about what the Trade Commissioner Service is in general, because some of you may not have used our services before. Maybe some of you have. For those who have, please forgive the repetition. We can go to the next slide, please. As you can see, I'm not going to follow this very closely. I've been a trade commissioner for 28 years, and I've done these types of things so many times that it sort of flows. But in a nutshell, the Trade Commissioner Service is a Government of Canada service that has been around for 125 years. I believe it's 126 years now, and we have offices in over 160 cities around the globe. And our network is it consists of a network of Canadian trade commissioners within Canada who spend their time fanning out to try to get to know the Canadian companies and the Canadian technologies where they are and as they're starting up. And then the offices abroad where we engage the services of locally engaged staff who are able to create networks and create opportunities and keep the ear to the ground and be the boots on the ground for Canadian companies internationally. So we have some funding sources that we make available to Canadian SMEs. Can Export is sort of the main one, but there's a number of others that we have. I would suggest that, talking to our regional offices well ahead of when you want to start exploring opportunities in international markets would be the best way to go, rather than me running through each and every funding mechanism. But we do have a couple of other sort of, signature events and programs that we have. One of them is the Canadian Technology Accelerator Program. This is something that started in the United States in a couple of different cities and has now grown into Indo-Pacific region, into France. And it's basically programs that we've created where we can get Canadian SMEs who are close to commercialization in front of mentors and in front of investors in areas where that particular sector of question is very strong. And so that's one of the programs I would suggest you think about. And the other place where we really do engage with Canadian companies very actively is in trade missions and in trade shows. And so, obviously, the last couple of years, for reasons that don't need to be mentioned, we've had an awful lot of these kinds of events have been postponed or moved to a virtual format. I expect that almost all of us are kind of getting tired of the virtual side and want to go meet people face to face. And that's where we come in. We can be at the trade shows with you. We can, we may have pavilions that you can join. There's it just depends on the show and it depends on the post. But we are definitely there to take you to potential buyers and get you in front of them and give you a lay of the land. So I think the next slide is basically says the same thing that this slide is, but it has a map. So take a look at the map. That's kind of where our offices are. We're the one that's right at the very bottom of South Africa, or of Africa there. But let's move on and I'll describe a little bit more what we do. When a Canadian company is looking to come to a foreign market, it's a good idea to reach out to the Trade Commissioner Service. The reason is that you may have special needs and special ways of doing your business. We're able to tell you what business is like on the ground. We're able to tell you whether or not it's this is the kind of market where you're probably best off finding a distributor, or if you want to try to make a direct investment. There's all sorts of considerations that are different from post to post. So we give you that market insight to let you be able to plan how to approach the international market, particularly for the first time. Once we know who you are, and this is important. This is something that I always try to instill in Canadian companies, is that we don't know who you are necessarily. We are, as I've said, about 10,000 of us, about 1,000 of us in 160 different offices. And so we get pretty busy. We deal with about 10,000 companies every year. And so it's important to get in front of us, because if we know who you are and we know what you do, then we can keep our eyes open for opportunities that are popping up in the market. And when we do identify those opportunities, we can then connect you with the key contacts, the people you need to deal with. And we're constantly meeting these people at events and trade shows, and that's our job. That's our value, is to be able to get you in front of them. And then finally, troubleshooting. Inevitably, when you're doing business internationally, things pop up. It can be as simple as a phone call on our part. I know that I've been posted in Japan, and this is a very hierarchical society. And sometimes if there's a bit of an issue with a Japanese company, a phone call from the embassy or a phone call from the consulate general is all it takes to get them to just want to get rid of the problem, because they don't want to lose face. It's different from market to market, but we're certainly available to help you with problems that arise on the ground. So again, what does that mean? It means we're helping you to expand to new markets, and we're reducing the risk that Canadian companies take when they go abroad. So we have done our metrics. We've looked at it. The Canadian companies who do use us tend to export faster. They tend to export to more markets than companies that don't use us. So I would just say, please take the time when you're in a foreign country, take the time to come in for a coffee. Take the time to pick up the phone. It's something that we really appreciate Canadian companies doing, because it helps us help you better. But I do want to say one more thing, and maybe to the next slide, or not one more thing. I wanted to touch upon one other aspect, and that, of course, is South Africa itself. Again, I'm not going to follow these particular points, but certainly in the clean tech sector, South Africa, I've been really quite amazed by the level of opportunity that is being created here in South Africa. South Africa is dealing with an energy crisis right now. Everyone who was the panelists were getting together about a half an hour before. We all were feeling the effects of what they call load sharing in South Africa, which is a fancy way of saying rolling blackouts. So you've got Eskom, who's the national utility, that's operating a fairly aged infrastructure, and these types of blackouts are affecting everything from business to schools to hospitals to everything. It affects all aspects of life in South Africa. So it's a problem that needs to be solved. There's another problem with it, and that is that Eskom's source of, or where they source their energy, is almost exclusively out of coal. I think it's something like 70%. And so, needless to say, South Africa is a very large carbon emitter. And so it's a problem that's been identified internationally. It's been identified by the South African government as something they want to deal with. They have created something that they call the just energy transition, and this is a plan and a time frame and a timeline for how they're going to start bringing new sources of energy online, particularly renewables, to try to reduce their carbon footprint. And so this was recognized last week. An international coalition of countries, the United States, the EU, the UK, et cetera, got together and committed $8.5 billion US for South Africa, to undertake that just energy transition. That's just a drop in the bucket. There's going to be more. There's going to be projects. There's going to be need for solutions. And as I said at the beginning, nobody has all the solutions. And so I really hope that we can find a way for Canadian companies who have developed carbon capture or carbon tracking, or are able to bring some of these solutions to the table for South Africa. That's a win-win for everybody. And so once again, I just want to thank everybody for participating, and I just wish you all the very best. So the last slide, I just want you to take a note of this. It's got the connections, the contacts for the three people at our trade office here. There's myself, there's Keith Banerjee, who's a trade commissioner dealing with clean tech, and then Darshni Pillay, who is, I would say, the boots on the ground. So please, if you want to reach out to us, that's where we are. The other contacts are our regional offices around Canada. Great place to start. Just as a final plea, if you're coming, going to be doing something internationally, use the Trade Commissioner service. We're there for you, and we're really happy to help. So I'll leave it at that. Have a great conference.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. And we will send these contact emails out as a follow-up email afterwards with some other information as well. So without further ado, let's hear from Exxaro on their carbon tracking and tracing challenge. Please go ahead and share your video.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And I apologize for the noise. I'm sitting somewhere in a small corner at COP Glasgow. I had to find a quiet spot so that I can at least do the presentation. And thanks for the session, colleagues, the Exxaro team also for organizing it. Thanks a lot. And I hope you are doing well in South Africa. We see that you guys are on stage 4 already, which is unfortunate. At least where I am, we've got power. And I'm not alone. Diksha, maybe if you go to the next slide so that the colleagues on the other side can see that I'm not alone. We've got a team within the Exxaro Climate Change and Decarbonization Project Office that's supporting in terms of developing one-of-the-kind carbon tracking and management tool, which we hope that we'll get great ideas from this session. My name is Abel Sakau, and I'm the manager on environment and climate change. And on the line, we've got Cyril. Maybe Cyril, when I introduce you, if you can switch on your camera. Cyril Chinabo, who's the principal engineer and working closely with the decarbonization and climate change team in terms of the energy management aspects. Cyril, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Abo. Good evening or good morning to everybody out there. Thank you. Also, yeah, stage 4. I'm currently in the middle of load shedding.
Thanks. Perfect, Cyril. And we also have Diksha Somai Pile. Diksha, who's the advisor.
No, I'm just watching.
Yeah.
So I did all the hard graph representing.
Mohammed, Mohammed, you are on mute. Yes. Diksha, you want to show your face?
Hi, everyone. I'm Diksha Pillai. I am the advisor for decarbonization and also supporting ABLE to set up the decarbonization project management office. My background is chemical engineering and then renewable energy. And I have significant experience in all of the fun innovation technologies like AI and machine learning, a regional ambassador for Hackmakers as well. So really excited to be here, and a special thanks to Elaine and Henry and Mohammed for supporting us with this open innovation.
Perfect. Last but not least, we've got Mohammed Jasset, who's also supporting in terms of making sure we can get a world-class outcome from this process, and member of the decarbonization team. Mohammed?
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be part of this journey and look forward to seeing some of those technology offerings that we can leverage to proceed on our journey towards decarbonizing the company.
Okay, perfect, Mohammed. And Diksha, next slide. So who are we from an Exxaro perspective? Exxaro is one of the largest. Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait. Okay. Yeah, it's one of the largest coal producer in South Africa and supplier of coal to Eskom, who's our energy company in South Africa. So without us in South Africa, there won't be power if we are not mining coal, because we feed directly into the three largest power stations that currently support the energy in South Africa. So without us, effectively, South Africa will not be able to generate enough power to drive economic growth. So that's why we are so important for the economy of the country. And the decarbonization journey for us is not only about reducing emissions, but it's about building business resilience to make sure that we can continue to produce coal and supply it to our Eskom, and also make sure that as we do that, we are always aware of the climate change constraints, but we are also dealing with them, making sure our coal can be produced with the least amount of carbon possible. So this tool for us is an important tool, because then it has to give us, the business decision-making tool that will be able to guide every time we make a decision to say, is that decision able to reduce our emission, or is it adding into our emission? So that's why it's critical for us to embark on this process. And we thought we have to go to the market to find out what's available there, and whether is there opportunity for co-development in terms of this process also. So we've got three operations. One of our largest operations is located in the Limpopo region in South Africa. It's the Waterberg. It's one of the largest coal open cast mine in the world, and it supplies two of Eskom largest power stations, and those power stations are supplied through conveyor belt. So it's our Grootegeluk operations in the Waterberg. And we also have in Mpumalanga, which is the traditional South African coal fields region. We've got our Matla which is tied to a power station. So everything that we produce there goes to that particular power station called Matla. It's an underground mine. And we also have Belfast, which is also located in Mpumalanga. It's mainly an export coal production facility where the bulk of the production is export quality. And we then have Lukwan, which also provides thermal coal and metallurgical coal to the domestic market. And we are also in joint venture with Anglo in our operation called Mafube. It's a 50-50 joint venture with Anglo. We're producing mainly thermal coal also for the domestic market. And lastly, we then have ferroalloys, which produces ferrosilicon using a high density separation process. And so these are currently our emission sources in terms of use of electricity for scope 2, and also in terms of scope 1, and also they also drive our scope 3 emission in terms of product use by our customers. And we then have our where the center of where we manage this from the connection. The connection is our innovative building. It's the only 6-star rated building in Africa. And it was designed to be like that so that it's energy efficient, water efficient, and it can drive innovation. And people can see that it's possible to actually have a building that is energy efficient, water efficient, and it can also allow for innovation to happen. And interestingly, as a coal miner, we also have wind farms that put green power into the grid. And those assets are housed under Synergy, which is our renewable energy company. We've got wind farms in the Eastern Cape producing 234 megawatt power into the grid. And we've been doing this since 2015. So it's quite amazing that, you know, we started with this transition long time ago before people could even think about it, that, you know, we've got a coal mining organization that already has got renewable energy, and we're scaling up our renewable energy assets. So, so we've got potential to transition and manage our GHG emissions. And so this process for us is critical because it's not a process that we thought of it last week. It's a process that we've been thinking about it since 2010. So now we are in the implementation phase, and we want to be wowed to see what's available out there in the market. Diksha? And I think when we frame this problem for us, like I said previously, that it's about business resilience. You know, how does a coal mining company produce coal with the lowest carbon intensity while supporting the entire partners within the value chain to decarbonize the value chain? And as we do that, are we able to make sure that as we grow the organization, as we make decisions in growing the organization, we are able to play those decisions against our emissions? We've got an aspiration to become carbon neutral by 2050. And it's important that any strategic decisions that we make, we can counterbalance that decision in terms of what is it going to do in terms of our emissions. Is it going to result in a positive increase in our emissions, or is it going to result in a reduction? And if that decision is understood from that perspective, then we are able to put mitigating measures to counterbalance whatever a negative impact that that particular decision is made. So I'm here today in Glasgow, attending the COP26. That shows that we are important for us to be part of the discussion and part of the solution. And I'm not alone. Our CEO and 2 executives are also in the in the conversations and the discussions that are happening in Glasgow. So climate change for us is real. You know, we can't say because we're a coal mining company, South Africa needs coal, so we're just going to ignore and continue mining coal. We know that coal has got a shorter runway, given the discussions that are currently happening here. But we want to make sure that as we come out of this action in terms of climate change, we we are doing it in a just way. So the tool has to be able to help us in terms of providing us with that ability to make decisions that are just, decisions that are going to lead into a transition that is controlled and managed rather than transition that is haphazard. So it's important that we allow decision making that is informed by facts. So the challenge that we have is that, you know, in a value chain process that we run, you sometimes get decisions that are made only to find out those decisions results in negative impact in terms of our emissions. So we want to be able to track each and every single decision that is made anywhere in the business. So for example, if there's a contract that we want to engage in terms of buying diesel trucks, and then the supply chain guys are thinking of getting into a contract for 20 years. The tool should be able to highlight that and say it's a risk, because what if in the next coming 5 years, you know, electric driven trucks and hydrogen trucks are feasible? What are you going to do now in terms of, now you've got a 15 years in terms of your contract that now you are bound to adhere to. So we need a tool that will be able to be dynamic, to be able to support decision making wherever they are made in the organization. Diksha? You can carry on from here, Srilan.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Abel. I think you've covered up and given us a really good starting point to discuss where our challenges are. Energy intensity management and carbon intensity management is something that's a critical cornerstone for us to move forward in terms of us understanding what is our energy envelope across each of our operations, and totally looking at Exxaro as a whole. What are those? And our focus on the controllables is on those scope 1 and scope 2 emissions that we are trying to get a full handle on. Are we able to baseline our energy usage and then identify suitable opportunities for us to bring our emissions down? And yeah, we have a solid handle now on our energy envelope across the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. That is your fuel usage and your electricity usage. However, yeah, I think the analytical tools and to visualize that in a better way, there's always that opportunity. We have that solid platform to get that done. And the biggest opportunity for us right now is how can we decarbonize our heavy mobile equipment fleet, and that's what we are looking at right now, because that can represent up to 30 to 35% of our carbon emissions reduction. So I think we have a platform now. What we'd like to get to is to the next level, and how can we add new dimensions to our effort, and look also at the scope 3 emissions, and look across our value chain, including our customers and who we sell to and those who we buy from, as Abel mentioned. So we would like to look at that part of it and augment our current solution with improved best-in-class analytics and the like tools and any technologies that will aid our effort towards carbon neutrality. So it's these transformational technologies that we would look at in the short to medium term that can support our journey towards carbon neutrality. Our journey is towards 2050, and we would like to put in those steps in place and those technologies in place, and be able to measure the impact of those technologies on our carbon footprint. So that's where we are, and that's where we want to get to as we speak. Thank you, Diksha. I can hand over.
Thanks, Abel and Saralan. I think you covered most of it. So for our attendees, I'm sure this is the exciting part. You want to know what a successful outcome and the next steps look like. So for us as Exxaro Resources, ideally, we would like a holistic view of all our carbon emissions within the company. So please think about how we can present this and visualize this from a historic perspective, predictive analytics, and perhaps real time. You are not excluded from the type of technologies you use. So if you do have a proposal or a solution that comes with IoT or any other technology platform that you would like to augment your solution, happy for that to be considered. This would also enable us to double click on a more granular level of the emissions from an operational perspective or even a functional area. So like Sararan mentioned prior for the mining, what is happening on our haul trucks from an emission point of view, and then functionally in our supply chain, as Abel mentioned prior. We'd also like the ability to understand the potential to offset our carbon emissions. This is through projects and opportunities that could be identified. You are welcome to also be creative in this aspect. And also please give us a visualization methodology on how we could prioritize these initiatives. You can think about carbon abatement cost curves as one of prioritization mechanisms. We would like the ability to be able to calculate a reliable carbon intensity for our operation. This will help us understand our business better and to prove that being productive is key, and it will help support us on any business improvement initiatives going forward. Ability to manage our data feed, our inputs, integrity of the data is key. Being able to create traceability and our data we should be able to audit our data. That rolls up into the calculation of the carbon emissions. And as always, a solution that is scalable, that we could replicate as part of our optimization activities. What does a successful company can potentially expect from us going forward? We will shortlist, and the successful candidate, we will enter into a commercial agreement with you to define, build, deploy, test, and scale your solution to our various operations. And as Abel has mentioned, when we talk about our emissions, not only carbon, we're thinking of GHG profile. So please also think about our methane emissions coming out from dumps, and then from a mining value chain, also when we do upfront of blasting the coal seams. And then we're looking forward to collaborating to develop and build a solution. It forms key of our strategic and our strategy, our sustainable growth and impact strategy. And we are really looking for a long-term partnership. So, congratulations to all of the attendees that have made it and applied. And we are excited to be working with you going forward. If team will allow me, you did mention, Alyssa and Astrid, our video. It was unfortunately 40 megabytes, so we couldn't email it, but I'm happy if you would give me 5 minutes to share our video to close out.
Of course.
All right, I hope it works. Please just bear with me. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
As the reality of climate change becomes starker, so too does the potential threat it poses to the environment in every sphere of human life. As the movement towards net zero is gathering momentum around the world, governments are increasing pressure on large emitters of greenhouse gases. Investors are actively decarbonizing their portfolios. Companies with a clear sustainability focus are attracting the best talent, while communities and industry are competing more fiercely for natural resources. A just transition to a low-carbon economy carries not only great responsibility, but also immense opportunity if we respond quickly.
And so we thought, let us come and share about what we, as primarily a coal business, how we have been responding to this climate change, which we take very, very seriously. So serious that back in 2019, as a board, we really undertook a very big strategic decision whereby we approved the adoption of the TCFD recommendations as a strategic framework for guiding our climate change response strategy.
Through our sustainable growth and impact strategy, Exxaro will not only adapt to a greener future, we will help to create it.
We see ourselves as a company that will be developing resources that will be critical to a low carbon world. So, our vision statement is resources powering a clean world. We see an Exxaro that will grow into a diversified energy and mineral resources business, which will continue to be relevant in a low carbon world.
Exxaro's energy ambitions have come to life with the creation of Synergy, an energy business that supports our carbon reduction goals and our ambitions for sustainable growth. We are diligently building an energy team with a goal of becoming a leading renewable energy solutions provider, both locally and internationally, by 2030. In addition to ensuring our minerals and energy businesses thrive, our sustainable growth and impact strategy sees the company being carbon neutral by 2050. Exxaro will continue being a catalyst for economic growth and environmental stewardship. Empowering our people and communities to create impact will remain part of who we are as Exxaro.
So what I personally expect from this upcoming conference of the parties in Glasgow in November is that we will see some form of a strong climate pact, stronger than ever before. For South Africa, of course, if we are part of that process and we are strongly committing towards achieving that net zero target by 2050, I think we can also expect new economic opportunities in South Africa in the form of major investments that must happen under the Paris Agreement in terms of investing in developing countries through cheap loans, through substantial investments, supporting their fossil fuel industries to make this conversion towards renewable energy.
The question for us was that whilst understanding the importance of this change, this whole notion of this just transition, how do we actually effectively do it on the ground in such a way that we don't leave the communities behind?
And our sustainable growth and impact strategy answers that. As we build our renewable energy pedigree and mining heritage, we continue to strengthen our networks and advance our energy strategy to open possibilities and power a clean world.
Thank you everybody for your time. I hope you enjoyed that video as much as we do. And always remember, Exxaro Resources, we power possibilities, and we're looking forward to all of the possibilities you present to us. So thank you again.
Thank you very much to the Exxaro team for that. That was great. Diksha, if you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen, I will put my screen back on. Thank you. All right. Well, at this point, if there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box or raise your hand and we will allow you to share your screen and ask your question in person. And I see we have one question that has come through already and it has been answered in the chat. So we have a question about methane leakage from the coal face in Scope 1 carbon footprints. And yes, that was accounted for in Scope 1 accounting. So that question has been addressed. If there's any others, please feel free to just type it on out, or you can raise your hand to ask those questions.
While we're waiting for the audience members to come up with their questions, I've got one of my own. You've mentioned that you have already certain mechanisms for measuring your Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. Could you describe more what you have, just so that the applicants have a better idea of what it is that they're going to be integrating with?
So Ralan, you want to take that question?
Sure. We currently we are working with a partner for the past 3 years now, a South African-based company called Energy and Combustion Services, and they have developed part of their intellectual properties. They've developed regression modeling tools that they were embedded in SharePoint and Excel, but they've since transferred that into the Power BI environment, and they are able to use all of our data from our operations, our dispatch data, and our fueling data, our energy metering data, and they bring that information into a baseline model and to these models that they've developed to calculate our adjusted baselines for our individual operations. And they have also been able to visualize key KPIs around our mobile fleet, and that's now being visualized in Power BI software, and that's what we use to track our performance at our operations. They've also developed what they've called a carbon profiler, a tool that they're also using with Anglo American, who's also a client of theirs, where they are able to give us a project registry of what kind of projects we are actually focusing on, what impacts those projects will have on our energy intensity reduction and carbon intensity reduction. And they're also able to project our path to carbon neutrality over the next 20 years if those initiatives come to fruition and mature at the right rate. But it's very much linked around Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions and purely at our operations. And as I said, there's definitely is room for us to augment other things into that solution and to bring in other partners to help us to get to the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have one question that came in just regarding that answer. Cyrilin, could you repeat the name of the existing partner company, the modeling you just described?
The company's name is Energy and Combustion Services, ECS.
Thank you.
Sure.
And we have one question about the timeline here. So I'll actually move my screen to this next window here. There's a question about when you're hoping to receive proposals, what the decision-making or review process would be, and when you would like to see solutions implemented. So I'll answer the first half of that question. In terms of the challenge milestones here, the submission window is currently open and is going to be open until midnight Pacific time on December 17th. The finalist pitch presentations will take place the week of February 14th. So deliberation will be between those time periods. And the winners will be selected around March 4th. And these dates are subject to change, but this is the timeline that we have outlined. And in terms of when you would like to see solutions implemented, does someone from Exxaro want to take that answer?
I'm going to give that to Mohammed.
Yeah, so I think from our side, we want to proceed quite quickly with this process. As Ralan said, we have some of the infrastructure already developed, and a lot of it is just going to be building onto our existing systems. So I think for us, very quickly after the winner is selected, we will go on a preferred vendor process through our supply chain processes, and then it's just a matter of the supply chain processes. It generally takes about, depending on how lucky we are as a large corporate, between a month to 2 months through the supply chain processes.
Great, thank you. Okay, and there's also a comment that was made by Mohammed in the chat here, and I'll just say it out loud for if anyone missed it. While Exxaro is looking for a holistic solution, if there are any technologies that can enhance the data picture, they are very interested in assessing those technologies as well.
I've got another question related to that, and this, when you're looking to apply, some companies will realize that they only have part of the picture. So, Exxaro, would you prefer a company present what they have as a technology, or would you prefer for them to find somebody else to partner up with to present a larger solution?
I think it would be interesting to see both of those positions. So we'd like to see. So we don't want to limit the technology offerings that we see so early in the game, right? Because there might be some fantastic silver bullet that might be sitting in somebody's basement that would like to develop further with them as well. But if somebody has the partnerships already with somebody else that has multiple components, because as we all know, climate change is a big challenge. There's multiple components to it, and not everyone has the answers to all the questions. If a collective or consortium can come together and pitch to us a consolidated or holistic solution, I think we'd be also very excited to assess that or analyze that as well.
Great, thanks.
Great. And we do have a question about if there's a link to a more detailed requirements document. There is a web page. Here is the link to it on the slide right now. On our website, there is a whole web page with more detailed information about Exxaro's challenge. We will also be sending out an email after this webinar with the link to view the webinar recording, as well as some important contact information and a link to this page. So everyone who has attended will be receiving that as well. But if you'd like to check it out, it's on our website at this link that's shown on the screen right here. Okay, well, I'll have a last call for questions. And if we don't have anything else, we will say thank you very much to Exxaro and to the Trade Commissioner Service Office in South Africa for your time and for sharing this challenge with us here. My colleague has posted the link to the challenge webpage in the chat. So on this page is more information about the challenge and deadlines and the link to the application form as well.
A question for you, Alyssa, just to clarify, if people do have further questions, they can email them in, correct?
Of course, you can email it to the SDG Connect webinar email address, and I will put that email address in the chat right now. Well, thank you all very much for attending. We will send all of the information we spoke about out to everyone so that you have this at your fingertips. Thank you again to Exxaro for sharing their challenge with everyone. And we look forward to reading all the solutions and getting them all in. So thank you all very much. And we will close out for today.